Lori, yeah.
Stacy Miller is online.
Stacy Miller. Dr. O'Hare is back. All right, let's begin with a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for homecoming and what it represents, and how you have changed many, many lives through Wayland in the past 110 or so years. We thank you for each one of those people, especially for people that come here and don't know you and leave with a relationship with you. So Father, we're mindful of all of those people over the years that came to Wayland thinking they were going to study this or that or play a sport and ended up with you having a bigger plan for their lives. Father, we thank you for the food before us and know that everything that we have is a gift from you. And we're truly thankful. Lord, we're also mindful of people around Texas that still are struggling with power issues and food issues, that we pray that you would be their comfort, you'd be their strength, and that they rely on you and that you take care of this folks, Lord. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right, so again, welcome to this homecoming event. This is the first time and hopefully the last time we will do homecoming this way. It looks like things are on an upward trend because last I heard they were planning that we were going to actually do face-to-face graduation. So yeah, they've released it. It's a done deal. I don't know if it's a done deal, but yeah, so we're going the right direction. I finally yeah. So it's an exciting time. It's a weird time. We've never done this before online like this, but it's really neat also how the technology to do class and events like this has developed, and now people speak in this language a lot more than they did at this time last year. So with that, I'm going to let Dr. Franklin introduce Joel, the speaker.
All right. It is my privilege to introduce to you up on the big screen, you see Dr. Joel O'Hare. In just a minute, I'll turn this over to him, and he's going to be our guest lecturer today. But to give you a little bit of background on him, he's provided a bio that I had to add a couple of things to, just because needed to feature Dr. Hahn and myself as your advisors for your undergraduate research. So, Joel O'Hare graduated from Wayland in the spring of 2006 with a major in mathematics and a minor in history, and was a four-time national qualifier on the Pioneer track and cross-country teams. While here, he was in the honors program and completed an undergraduate research thesis, which I still have on my shelf. So if anybody needs some reading for, just for pleasure. Portfolio optimization, a comparison of methods, the title's too long to fit on the spine. A comparison of methods and an exploration of different estimators of return and measures of risk. Dr. Hahn, like I said, and myself were his co-advisors. So we're proud of this guy and what he did. Moving on from here, he went to SMU where he got his MS in 2008 and a PhD in 2010, both in statistical science. Joel moved to the Denver area of Colorado with his wife, Kristen, where he began his professional career. He had a variety of corporate roles in data science and business analytics for 6 years before joining KPMG, which is a Big Four consulting firm employing 35,000 people in the US. He joined KPMG to start a data science function for the mergers and acquisitions advisory practice. In his 4 years at KPMG, Joel has grown his team to dozens of team members nationwide and a annual revenue approaching $10 million, leading to a promotion to managing director in 2020 of October of 2020. Joel and his wife, Kristen, still live in the Denver area with their three boys, Logan, Max, and Colin. Joel enjoys running in the thin, cold air of Colorado, hiking and playing games and finding ways to pass the time with his family. And while they love the mountains that make Colorado famous, Joel and his family actually live on the northern suburbs of Denver, which are very reminiscent of his time here at Wayland. They are flat and have a heavy emphasis on agriculture and oil and gas. So it's kind of like home away from home, or just couldn't get away from West Texas, so he found it wherever he went. So anyway, would you help me welcome Dr. O'Hare?
Thank you for, can you hear me?
Yes, we
I can't hear you. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to share my screen, and I don't know what that will do to your screen. Hopefully that works.
It is up, and then I'll put you in a little picture-in-picture.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Well, while he's doing that, let me just say thank you, Dr. Franklin, and Dr. Reinhardt, Dr. Hahn, Dr. Adamson, all of you, for giving me the great honor of speaking to you all today. Let me also say thank you to all of you for coming virtually or in the room there. It's flattering to see all of you knowing what else you could be doing right now instead of sitting through a boring guest lecture. I'll tell you what I was doing on Friday afternoons when I was here. I was still trying to decipher Dr. Franklin's whiteboard handwriting from that week. I remember taking one of his special topics courses in cryptography, but never learned how to decrypt his handwriting. But seriously, it's hard to identify one person who had a greater impact on my entire educational experience than Dr. Franklin. He was my formal and informal advisor and mentor. I took more classes with him by far than anyone else from high school through grad school. I've never met anyone or any faculty group with a greater personal passion for their subject matter expertise and for teaching it to others. Every student who's had the privilege to get to know Dr. Franklin and the other math and science professors know that they take their students' education personally. And again, I am very happy and honored to be here virtually to talk to you guys a little bit about my experience at Wayland and since Wayland. The list of alumni who are more interesting, better speakers, and have achieved more than me is a long one. So why am I here? More importantly, why are you here? Well, in my meandering talk today, I hope to share how the things I learned and experienced at Wayland have created considerable opportunities for me and my career. I did a few things right and many things wrong in my time at Wayland. And I think I know which is which after having about 15 years to think about it. So I hope we're on our way to learning something this afternoon. Let me start by relating what brought me to Wayland back in 2002. I grew up and went to high school in Lubbock, so I had been aware of Wayland for a long time, though I didn't personally know anyone who went there. I found many aspects of Wayland compelling as I was researching universities my last couple of years of high school. But let me narrow it down to the three most compelling. First, it's a small university. I knew I'd never take a core education class that had more than 30 or 40 students, and no course in my major with more than 15 or 20. I knew that I would have no problem getting help from any professor when I needed it. Second, those professors genuinely care. They're not so wrapped up in their research and publication efforts to have time for their students. Now, I know that Wayland's professors and students do cutting edge research and write great publications, but it was obvious to me from enrollment to graduation that the students came first. You may or may not know the financial incentives at most universities and in academia more broadly, but they don't motivate a professor to take time away from their research efforts to spend time with undergraduate students. But that simply wasn't the case at Wayland. I'll come back to this later and why it matters so much. And third, Wayland provided by far the best return on investment in my education. Wayland is more expensive than the typical state university if you're in state, but it's much less expensive than the typical private university or public university paying out-of-state tuition. I know that times are tough financially for almost everyone right now, but I also know that Wayland's commitment to keeping a high-quality education affordable remains steady. Now, I'm not talking about a cheap education in the sense that my 1992 Plymouth Laser that moved me to Wayland was cheap. This car, it looked great and it was a smoking hot car. And that's how the engine was destroyed between my freshman and sophomore years. It's a dramatization, but the engine literally caught fire. I did not pay much for that car, but I also did not get much out of it. When compared to other options, I did not spend much on my out-of-pocket for my education at Wayland, but I'm proud to say that I've gotten quite a bit out of it. I expected to receive and did receive a premier education rivaling any university you could compare it against, taught by amazing faculty who cared personally about my success. Of course, I have a bias toward the School of Math and Science and Wayland as a whole. But when you consider on one side the quality of education and the breadth of opportunity and experience, and on the other side, consider what the education costs you, I don't know that there is a close second to Wayland when it comes to value and return on your investment. When someone talks about return on investment in this context, the business-minded among us might think about some kind of financial metric. You might think about the ratio of lifetime earnings to the cost of education, or maybe the incremental salary you'd expect with a degree compared to not having the degree, divided by the cost of the degree. If you're not currently concerned about the return on your financial educational investment, please take the time to consider it. Having said that, I would also encourage you to think beyond the financials when considering your investment in your education and what you get out of it. The investment you make in your education should be much more than the monetary cost to get your degree. And the return on that investment is much more than just the prospect of a higher salary. Beyond the financial cost, your investment in your educational phase of life boils down to how effectively you spend your time gaining knowledge and experience. And the most effective ways to do that don't cost a penny more than you're spending right now. And while I might suggest a change to the business model, your professors don't charge you extra to come by their office for help with an assignment or to understand a concept. In fact, I know that most of them are positively eager to help you, above and beyond just making the grade. I know for a fact that this is not true everywhere. The return from your time and monetary investments in your education is not just the larger paycheck you might get. The primary return is opportunities of how and where to use your time to make a living. If your only desired outcome from your education is to make a ton of money in your career, then I hope you make 2 tons. But for most of us, it is too easy and too obvious to boil this down to earning potential. We have spouses, families, hobbies, and more that compete for our time and energy. But let me let you in on a little secret. The attributes that make an employer want to pay you a ton of money are the same ones that will get you selected for highly competitive jobs with flexible hours or flexible location. Your investment in your education and experience can help you land a financially lucrative position that requires you to work 70 hours a week and travel 4 out of 5 days every week when there's not a pandemic. Or you can cash in your experience on a decent paying gig that has flexible working hours. Investing wisely in your education can open up either option. I've run into many students who are happy to just get through college with a degree and little more, or may not even be concerned about graduating. Often I'll hear an explanation to the effect of not caring about making a lot of money. And I'm not here to criticize anyone on their priorities, but my response to someone who says that is, high five for understanding there's more important things in this world than money. I spend personally way too much time thinking about money, and the world needs more people like you. But if you do plan to have some kind of job to make a living, you would do well to create as many opportunities as you can for yourself in order to get a job that will allow you to spend time doing the things that you believe are more important than money. Just a little food for thought as you consider what you can get from the years and expense of attending university. Speaking of opportunity, graduate school is an excellent opportunity in itself, and a graduate degree will get your foot in the door at places that might surprise you. I expect that many of you have either attended or will consider attending graduate school. For me, Wayland was an ideal launching pad and foundation for graduate school. 2 excellent graduate statistics programs in Texas made me an offer in 2005 and 2006, SMU and Rice. I also got an offer from Colorado State University. And after a bit of deliberation, I realized 3 things. First of all, Rice is in Houston. Nothing against Houston, but my in-laws live there. Second, for SMU, attending Southern Methodist University might cause Wayland Baptist University to disown me. And the Colorado State University attraction was much more about playing in the mountains than it was about their academic excellence. And in the end, I decided to go to risk the rejection of Wayland Baptist University and go to SMU. Overall, I think I made a pretty good decision. I met my wife, Kristen, in Dallas while attending SMU, and we moved to Colorado as soon as I graduated. We live in the Denver area now with our 3 boys, Logan, Max, and Colin, as Dr. Franklin mentioned earlier. And it's the guest lecturer's prerogative to show photos of his kids. So here they are. This was up in the mountains a couple of years ago. This was also in the mountains in summer of last year. I really enjoyed the entire experience of graduate school. So what does it take to get into graduate school? Well, the competitive, well-funded programs want to see high-level academic performance as an undergraduate. They want to see extracurricular activities and work or research experience in your field. In my case, 100% of the material for my application to grad school came from Wayland, from my experience at Wayland. I had no work experience, but they liked the experience I gained doing research as part of Wayland's honors program. Ask your professors, but I know that there are many formal and informal opportunities to do research apart from the honors program. I had no activities or affiliations to brag about other than competing for the Pioneer track and cross country teams. Letters of recommendation from your professors are also a critical component of admission, so stay on their good side. There are many stories I could tell from my 4 years at SMU. I received an incredibly valuable education, of course, and even professional experience as a teaching assistant and research assistant. Starting at the end of my first year, I was privileged to work under a research contract with the Department of Veterans Affairs to learn the nature of Gulf War syndrome and identify cases of it among veterans. It was a joint contract between SMU and UT Southwestern, and SMU's role was to analyze various modalities of brain images to identify the difference between healthy veterans and those exhibiting symptoms. I focused most of my attention on functional MRI, or fMRI, which measures brain activity through blood flow in a completely non-invasive way. That work provided funding for my graduate school and a topic for my doctoral dissertation. One of the difficulties with fMRI is understanding real localized brain activity and the other sources of noise in the data. And my research was centered on extracting the signal from that noise. Overall, graduate school was a really great thing for me and perfect for my career. Here are a few highlights and lessons learned from my grad school experience. One, I lived in Dallas. For 4 years after living in Plainview for 4 years. And I can say that living in Dallas is basically the same as living in Plainview. I was, on the first day of graduate school, I was hit by an SUV that was going 30 miles an hour while running on a road through a park. So the next thing I learned was that running isn't as good for my health as I thought. And grad school is hard. The third thing I learned, and requires many late nights of researching and writing. Success in grad school depends much less on intelligence, diligence, and creative problem solving than it depends on coffee. In the competitive employment marketplaces that many of you are in or will soon be, a college degree is almost a necessity, but far from sufficient to get a foot in the door to many careers. For the truly desirable jobs, just having a degree is not enough. You might think that I would have had an easy time finding a good career just writing my degree. That's what I thought. I did find a career right out of grad school, but my search took me almost 6 months, and the differentiating factor among the literally hundreds of qualified applicants was not my doctorate. The differentiator that helped me stand out and get the job offer was twofold. One, my computer programming experience, which began under Dr. Franklin right there in the Moody Science Building. And two, the topic of my honors thesis that Dr. Franklin showed you guys just a minute ago, portfolio optimization. The position was for a quantitative analyst at a small hedge fund, and my honors research topic was about portfolio optimization. It was a tough job market back in the middle of 2010, but there's no doubt in my mind that the programming and research I did right here at Wayland helped me stand out and land that job. Speaking of computer programming, let me ask you something. How many of you have ever asked this question in one of your math classes? Why do I have to learn this when a computer can do it for me? You might have received an answer such as, well, you need to know how to do it for the next thing we'll learn. Or somebody has to know to do it so they can teach others. Or you're developing problem solving and critical thinking skills that are critical to your success. All of those are true. But I would like to respond in my own way, speaking even to my former self. If you're right that a computer can do this task, go learn how to make a computer do it. Go learn a programming language. If you already know one, go learn another. Figure out which programming platform is most prevalent in your field and take a course on it, or teach yourself by using it in your current courses. Whatever you learn is almost guaranteed to translate to other platforms, so don't worry about learning the wrong one. It's really hard to overstate the importance of programming if you are in or plan to go into a quantitative or technological career. For me, questions about programming expertise came up within 5 minutes of my first conversation with a new colleague or potential employer. Opportunities can be open to you or get slammed shut based solely on the breadth and depth of your programming experience. Another question you may ask yourself is, how could I ever use this in my job? That's a fair question, and one that I've asked myself many times. There's many good answers to that question, and the one you've probably heard before is similar to one of the earlier ones. You're learning how to learn. If that's not satisfying to you, let me offer another answer. In many careers, you cannot know in advance what piece of knowledge or experience you have that will be valuable. Here's an example. The biggest part of my job at KPMG is called buy-side diligence for a potential acquisition. Think of us as the home inspector who looks at the foundation, wiring, et cetera, when you go under contract to purchase a home. But instead of inspecting the plumbing, we inspect the financial performance of a business down to a very granular level. Back in the fall of 2019, we were advising a large private equity firm who was looking to buy a company with volatile levels of cash flow. We had worked with this client only a few times in the past few years, as they had another preferred Big Four firm for their diligence. But when the question arose on what level of cash the company needed to maintain, no one had a good answer. In fact, they had asked their other diligence providers this question many times in the past and never got an answer. When I took a look at the problem, I worked with one of my team members to build a fairly simple ARIMA time series model with a seasonality component that gave them a solid answer within a day. And by the way, it seems like we never have more than a day to answer questions in our line of work. This one contribution led to repeated engagement with this client across more of our KPMG services. If you don't know what ARIMA models are, talk to Dr. Hahn, because he's the one who taught it to me 15 or 16 years ago. Prior to that engagement, I had not touched time series modeling once since school and would not have guessed that I'd need to use them for many years. But it proved to be just the thing they needed, that we needed to help our clients and expand our relationship with them. I'll give you another example where something Dr. Hahn taught me yielded an unexpected dividend in my career. And I need to start by saying that this is not pandering nor exaggeration. I have to give that disclaimer because this true story happened after the last time I saw Dr. Hahn about 6 years ago. My current boss at KPMG made the call to hire me 4.5 years ago and told me that he was impressed during my interview when I said the data are, and those data aren't. If you've all taken courses from Dr. Hahn, the word data is plural. And my boss is the only person I've met in my professional career who's been fighting the good fight of the word data being plural, something Dr. Hahn indoctrinated me and my fellow stats students. It's been almost 11 years since I started my post-academic career, and it has touched a variety of analytical and technology-enabled fields. With each role came new business models, new technologies, and problems to solve that didn't have any kind of framework for a solution. I don't want to shill too much from my own career path, but these scenarios are quite common in the business world and why data scientists are in such high demand. If you don't know what data scientists are, think of us as a statistician and computer scientist combo. Data scientists create applications and bring insight to issues for which data exists, but the data are difficult to access and aggregate. Data scientists learn the discipline through different means, and there's no well-established industry norm for becoming a data scientist. I've seen data science degrees pop up at several universities in the last several years, including one master's in data science program at SMU that started right after I graduated there. And I've talked to Dr. Franklin recently about some data science courses at Wayland. I did learn quite a bit of my data science expertise on the job, but my initiation came through extensive computer programming and training right here at Wayland. In fact, when I took a computational statistics course in my second semester of grad school, I taught my professor a little bit about programming in C, which I learned from Dr. Franklin. And it's not just the computational side of data science that I learned here at Wayland. The pursuit of a graduate degree in statistics began with the 2 courses I took from Dr. Hahn in probability and statistics. Now, I'd like to tell you that if you enter my line of work, your employers and clients will constantly demand the most sophisticated data science and statistics you could learn. And I could tell you a couple of stories where technical depth and analytical sophistication landed new clients and expanded our relationship with others. Having said that, some clients just aren't sophisticated enough to fully appreciate the most advanced analytic techniques. Put another way, many of our clients have too many basic questions about the past and present to be concerned with forecasting the future. As I alluded to earlier, most of our clients are private equity, which are firms that exist to buy and sell companies in private markets. Back in 2017, I was working for one of our PE clients, private equity clients, to help improve operations at a company they had recently bought. This company manufactured technology components for vehicles and aircraft, but had a hard time forecasting how and when orders would come in, and had missed their forecast for 6 quarters in a row. This was an acute problem because they had to invest materials and labor to begin the manufacturing process before the orders came in, if the orders were to be fulfilled on time. Improvement to their forecasting process became critically important, and it seemed like an excellent opportunity to use the most sophisticated statistical and machine learning methods available. My team and I built a highly sophisticated model showing all of the leading indicators of what would cause a potential order to be placed or canceled. And while the client appreciated that work, they needed something simpler and quicker to implement with their sales reps and in their systems. After a few rounds of iteration, the thing we ultimately delivered to our client was nothing more than an historical average success rate on potential orders across a few different order types. We helped our client with the analyses that they could not do on their own, and they were thrilled with the outcome, but it just goes to show it is hard to predict what a client will value, and that client service takes priority over data science sophistication. And yes, if you're interested, your Wayland professors can teach you how to calculate average success rates. In addition to the experience and hard skills gained in your education and work experience, employers are also looking for less tangible skills as well. There are many of these, but if I had to pin down just one, it would be an innovative attitude and approach to solving problems. I think it's fair to say that almost every career these days requires at least some measure of innovative and creative thinking, but especially in analytical and quantitative fields. When successful, innovation gets the attention of major influencers of an organization and is the kind of career accelerator that creates opportunities beyond your education level or years of experience. And it might actually get more attention when the innovation fails, and you probably don't want that kind of attention. But seriously, there are 3 things I've learned about failure. First of all, I do it a lot. One time I made what appeared to be a tiny mistake on a model I built for my largest client, and it went undetected for a long time. But when it was found, I got taken off the account and we nearly lost the account altogether. That was just a careless mistake. Another time, one of my innovations completely fell flat. I built a super sophisticated sales optimization model and created an application that triggered notifications to the relevant sales reps. but 9 months of pressing and internal marketing could not get the relevant individuals to pay attention or use it. We don't have time for me to list all of my failures, but my career progressed in spite of them. Number two, good organizations will support you in your failure. Think of one of the most innovative companies in the history of the world tried to create a social network twice. Google created Buzz around 2009, refused to learn their lesson after it failed, and created Google Plus in 2011 as it was shutting down Buzz. And since none of you were following Pioneer Basketball on Google Plus, they shut it down in 2019. I don't mean that your future employer will be happy with failure, but the good ones will support you when you take reasonable risks, and they will take those risks alongside of you. Many of those endeavors will fail, but you and your team will learn from them, even though Google did not. And finally, try to do most of your failures when the stakes are low. University provides a great chance to innovate and fail when thousands, millions, or billions of dollars are not on the line. But of course, don't fail when your grades are on the line. I believe that Wayland provides a great training ground to teach students how to innovate and think creatively to solve problems. And I'm not just talking about formal research. I think most people would expect this kind of innovation to be fostered at the graduate level, but Wayland is in a unique position to develop it in undergraduate students. Many courses I took, especially the upper level ones, had open-ended projects or problems to solve as large parts of the grading structure. These kinds of courses and projects stretch my own creativity to the limits, but are only possible with professors who have a personal interest in their students' development. Not to mention small enough classes to make it possible to assist and evaluate those projects. The key for me was to learn how to learn and get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that started right here. I have no doubt in my mind that Wayland was not just the perfect undergraduate school for me in my career, but also the perfect environment that fosters learning beyond the classroom that really mattered in my career. I've talked a lot about the high quality and caring attitude of these professors, and I think there's something unique about Wayland that makes it possible. The Christian values that are at the foundation of everything Wayland does, and it attracts an outstanding group of faculty and administration. Whatever the case, Wayland is a special place, and I attribute great value on what I learned and experienced here. I hope and pray that Wayland does the same for you. Thank you for having me today. And I think everyone's on mute. I can't hear the room. Oh, there we go. I'm happy to take any questions or comments, or if anybody has any jokes, I've got time.
Would you like to
I was
ask
hoping to ask a question. I don't know if Dr. Franklin's talking.
Go ahead.
You mentioned that you did undergraduate research in portfolio optimization and then graduate research in biology.
Yeah.
Did you get into the field of statistics with the goal of getting into finances, or did you have a set plan when you got into statistics or a field that you were interested in?
Yeah, looks like that was Jacob talking. Yeah, so great question. I think I always had it in mind to go into business in some capacity, and certainly finance. I experienced some really interesting stuff in the biological research. I toyed with the idea of a postdoctoral research, but my wife and I just had a kid, and postdoc stipends don't support a kid. So yeah, went into business, and that's pretty much what I had my eye on most of the time. And Dr. Franklin and Dr. Hahn, you know, helped me tailor my research, and my grad school at SMU. They helped me tailor my research in those ways. Good question.
Anyone else? Dr. O'Hare, I will mention that Jacob, who you were just talking with, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
has been accepted to a data science graduate program
Nice. Which one?
at this point.
I've been accepted at Texas Tech and UTV.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Do you have a career path in mind for that?
No, that's why I was asking you how you got into yours.
Well, look, feel free to follow up. I'd love to connect if that's helpful. And any of you, I believe Dr. Franklin can provide my email address. I'd love to connect with any of you if you're interested in connecting further and are too shy to ask a question here on the Zoom call.
All right, that's Dr. Reinhardt.
Do you still trust your portfolio optimization to do your own investing?
No, I put it all in GameStop. Took it out of Bitcoin and put it in GameStop. Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I think what I learned in that effort was, stocks go up and down a lot, and even the mutual funds that are big baskets of stocks, and just to be patient, take the long term view, is probably the best way to go. I've got too much else to do than worry about the daily, weekly, or monthly ups and downs.
What language are you writing in most of the time now, Joel?
English.
That was Dr. Hahn. He said, what language coding in most of the time now?
Dr. Hahn, R. R is what I do all my stat stuff in. But I've fallen in love for like data manipulation, just kind of putting things together. Platform called Alteryx. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. They're actually based here in the Denver area. And it's a fantastic tool. It's lousy for, building statistical models and for predictions and forecasts, but it's fantastic for, putting the data together, all that good stuff. What are you teaching in your classes these days, Dr. Hahn?
Oh, not R yet. Probably should be using R. Now that we have a computer science program, we can actually
right.
object-oriented type or structured languages, I think, especially in the upper level stat classes. We're considering trying to put together, as you said before, some data science stuff and trying to put together a series of courses. And I think we probably use R, maybe Python. I don't think we've gotten far enough to make a decision about that yet.
Yeah, I'd call myself somewhere between beginner and intermediate in Python. It's great for, the non-parametric kind of machine learning model. It does better than R on those. So nothing against Python, but if you want to get deep into, actual stats, R's my favorite.
All right, well, thank you so much. We're going to dismiss and let everybody round up the rest of the pizza on their way out the door. But I wanted to thank you again, Joel, for taking the time to visit with us and to share your experience. And I will say again to everyone that's here, if there are any of the aspects that he's talked about as a future career path that you might be interested in connecting with one of our alumni are always excited to work with our students and try to help them find what they need to get where they want to go. So it's not just us as professors, but it's also our alumni. So one more. Okay.
We're hiring. Just to say that we're hiring.
That's what
Anyway, go ahead.
One question. Do you have, I know you said you're hiring, but is there an internship program or anything like that you run?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have interns every summer. It's about a month long, usually maybe 6 week long program. I don't recall, but absolutely. And you can, if you're, statistics, data science, that's great. If you are more of like a finance type angle, we've got spots for that as well. Yeah, I think we've got, quite a few every year. And then those feed into, full-time hires, after you graduate, if we like each other.
All right, let's give him one more round of applause. Thank you so much, Joel. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank you all. I'll watch the mail for some pizza.
It'll stay frozen on the way.
Yes. Perfect.
Hey, Lori, that was Stacy Harlan that was on the Zoom. She overlapped with us, right? Like she was here when we were students and then graduated a couple of years after us. Is that right? It's nice to have an alumni in the group.